You chose to be a Sufi for some reason. Why? And how is that going?
Yeah, well, this one chose to be a Sufi at the beginning of my spiritual path was about the love. And where I was at that stage, it was, Rumi and the divine and just wanting to experience that connection on that deeper, loving level. As the years have progressed, beginning to understand it's not necessarily just about the love, and there's a bit of frustration and anguish and pain and letting go that's involved with that. And there are times when sort of experience that expansion and contraction. But sort of reflecting a little bit on this morning, and what came to me this morning was that having a deeper understanding that it is a path of you need to keep working at it, and you need to have that intention of coming back to Allah and trying to be aware of what Allah is showing one in one's life. And I think for this one, what I'm slowly realising is that if you keep on putting your focus and intention on Allah, then things in some ways can start to make sense and come together. And what I mean by that is one's perception of the world. There is a sense for this one is that about the letting go of who you think you are. Easier said than done, but yeah, I think that's the mission that we signed up for.
Very good. Thank you.
I can talk a little bit.
Okay.
I can relate to what Alamin was saying. It was the same draw for me was love and just the way that, when I was reading the way Sufis talked about it, seemed a different sort of understanding than I had found elsewhere. How's it going? Looking for any sort of glimmer that comes into my heart whenever it happens, and just trying to be open to that.
Being open, stuck at the moment, like you used to say, plateau stuck. And the idea of being a Sufi is seeking that love and finding where it takes you.
Yeah. That's part of it. As like Alamin was saying, there's more aspects to it.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, it's a big part of it.
Good. Thank you.
If I may. Salaam Alaykum, everyone. So I came to Sufism because it felt right. It just felt like this is it. Yeah. In a funny way, I was sort of easing in, and I met someone who was teaching Arabic, and my thought was, I need this. And I'm like, what? Okay, I need this. And then I found out I needed it. And right now, the thought that came to me when you asked the question, where are you at right now, was first I thought pushing the boundaries, the perceived boundaries, but then that kind of twisted into poking holes in the perceived boundaries, which is different. It's like, yeah, there's that, but look, that opened up, rather than just pushing. So I have a different feeling there. Yeah.
Huh. Okay, so there's pushing boundaries and there's poking holes in the boundaries.
Yeah, poking holes in the boundaries felt more like what's going on.
It's probably easier to be more specific than to be rather general.
Yeah.
Huh.
That's
Okay.
what popped in. That's what popped in when you asked the question.
Okay. Yeah, no, poking holes in the boundaries. But It's also being aware of the boundaries. Good. Okay. Yeah. Rukaya.
I love that description, Rosie. It's really beautiful. Like the testing the waters, seeing why we've thought a certain way for such a long time, all of that. Really beautiful. And I totally agree. For me, similarly, I mean, Allah found me, and that feels like a bit of a unique experience, but Allah introduced me to Mui and then to you, Sheikh, and again, it felt right. There was a bit of assessing, like, is this going to be the same as what I grew up with, which was just words, or is it going to be deeper? And it's been so much deeper. It's not funny. Alhamdulillah, I'm really grateful that Allah showed me the right way. For me, how it's going, I've learned so much about myself over the years, and especially the last couple of years, and on so many different levels. And it's really beautiful to see the world from your heart. It's so different to just like eyes and head focus, like all up here. There's just something so beautiful and unique. And I love that the Sufi path is so unique as well. Like, it's not just, this is the box, fit into it. It's, what is your box? And again, how do you test the waters, and how do you make sure that this is the right fit? Is your box still the right fit? It's kind of a constant questioning.
It is, yeah. But I like that. What is your box? That's good.
I needed roots, and I knew that when I found Paraka, that the roots were there. That's why I started. But where am I at now? Well, I was able to wait till last, so that's an improvement.
Ah, that's true.
A development.
Fantastic. You mentioned roots. Could you explain what you mean by that? That you were looking for roots.
Goes all the way back, yeah?
Yeah.
So I felt like I was born into a culture that didn't have those, whatever you need to be a proper human. It had lost some of that stuff. So yeah, it was about love and truth, but also solidity, like a solid ground, some sort of place to keep as the middle, the center, to keep coming back to. And like Rakaya said, something that was flexible, because life is crazy. So you can't get too brittle about stuff.
Well, what happens when you get brittle?
Things break when they get brittle. Strength and flexibility go together.
That sounds like a big realization.
Yeah. But right now it's everything, there's a bit of a softening that's going on, getting into the more subtle side of things. Just an overwhelming abundance of blessings. And that sounds really good, but that's also a lot to handle for one who is used to minimizing and simplifying in order to manage things. Keeping things complex and still trying to keep on top of things is new, and that's interesting. It's really about trust at the moment, because I don't have the capacity to really be on top of it all, really. So it's more like surrendering and going, well, what's right for now. And if I don't get it right, it's pretty obvious pretty quickly. So then I check in and say, well, I'm not getting this right. So what is right? And then you tell me, and then it seems to work. And the more I trust that, the more I trust that Allah's got the plan, and I don't have to hold everything in my hands all the time, the more things tend to work out better.
Is that different for you?
Oh, very different. Because the concern is always, if I'm not trying to keep on top of everything, then they'll drop something and there'll be consequences. but the consequences of trying to hold everything are greater. Yeah. So I'm not Allah. It's mostly that. I didn't make all of this. I'm not responsible for all of it. Responsible for little bits of it. And even then, I don't have a huge amount of control. I just have awareness, and I can bring awareness and love into the situations. That's what I can do.
Okay. So I heard you say that because you're trusting more, it's easier to surrender.
I don't know about easier. More obvious that there isn't an alternative, maybe. Yeah. Yeah, I feel like the rewards of trust and the rewards of surrender are bigger, in that the confirmation is happening more quickly when I do trust and surrender, and those things are becoming more apparent. But that way that is the best way, is becoming more apparent, more obviously. Because it used to be a bit more confusing.
All right. So it's choosing a certain direction about surrender and going, well, maybe there's another way. So that's an option, new option for you. When you trust more, you can surrender. You figured out that surrender gives you a better outcome.
Yeah.
Okay.
It's a relief because you're not trying to hold everything in your own head and heart all the time. Someone else is in charge. You know?
Everybody has a different take on that, especially since we all grow up in different ways. We all learn that trust is many different things.
Mm-hmm.
And trying to clear that out to get to the basic is tricky. Anything else anybody want to add here about what you've learned about what Sufism is and how it applies to you?
I'm just remembering, like, thinking back to what we were saying about Sufism having roots. And for me, it's on top of the lineage, it's also the heart roots. It feels really grounded. Not that I've had tons of experience with lots of other religions, but it feels like the thing that's coming to mind right now is my heart has connection and my heart has grounding. Like, I don't feel like I'm stuck in a swarm of thoughts and head stuff and everything. When I'm here in Sohbet, when I'm talking to you, when I'm doing zikr, and when I'm connected with my heart, I feel like I'm connecting to Allah, to the world, to all the love that there is. Like, it feels really solid.
Somebody comes to you and says, I hear you're a Sufi. What is that? Or Sufism? I don't know what that is. Are you Buddhist? What religion is that? Are you Muslim? What do you pray 5 times a day? What do you do?
I did actually have somebody ask me that at work, but you and I had talked about kind of how to have that conversation, and I think I said something to the effect of it's like all about just getting out of the way, which we always are talking about. And for that person, that was pretty much good enough.
So they didn't ask any follow-up questions.
Minor things I don't remember.
But that's good.
Yeah.
It sounds like you answered the question as they understood what that meant. So that sounds great. Yeah, you have to figure out what is the person really asking, and what is it that they know that I can build on. And if they have no reference, you have to kind of come up with your own reference. How do you answer that? Yeah.
The surface level answer is often that it's similar to Buddhism being a personal path, because that's an easy reference point for a lot of people. Again, I haven't had many follow-up questions or anything like that to go deeper on that.
Well, what you said about, assessing where the person's coming from, what they might understand and how to speak to them. Because the first thing I thought of is I tend to be around a lot of spiritually oriented people. And so I might say something along the lines of, well, it's the Gnostic path in Islam. And people would likely understand that. And then I might qualify it a little more that it's searching for deeper meaning and deeper sense of direct connection to the Creator. And here again, just depending on who I'm speaking with, who asked the question, and what I ascertain as their, background and things, what they might understand. So yeah, if we get into a discussion, it might just, who knows where it might go. But yeah, I definitely tell people, well, I'm a Muslim, and it's the deeper path of Islam, the more deeper connections and spiritual side of Islam, and also that it's a very personal path, and get around to that big thing of it's about love and goodness, and because once you start talking about Islam, it's so negatively perceived in the US and many other places. So, just get into that beauty part of it and try to steer it that way.
It's tricky. There's certain buzzwords that will immediately cause a kind of a whole litany of connections that maybe you don't want to go down. Asking your heart, what is somebody really asking here? Is it schmoozing, or is it actual interest in wanting to learn about that? The other thing that I very often I get asked is it a religion? And I have to explain, no. It's embedded in Islam, but it really is part of every religion. It's the basis of it. And somebody described it to me as the underground river on which all the religions draw from, which I thought was really nice. Isn't that nice? It comes up and it says, well, this is Christianity, this is Judaism, but that's the source. What advice would you give someone who seems to be looking, who's a seeker? And they, maybe they say, well, I've read these books and I've gone to these teachers, but I don't know.
The question that's coming to mind, rather than a statement, it's more of a question of what do you want to know?
Ooh, that is a good question.
Yeah, because as you said, and as we've seen with some people who have come to Sohbets before, everyone has a different purpose and a different intention when they're looking into Sufism. Some people, it's, I want to be spiritual, I've read all the books, I've done all the things. And other people, it's, I want to get to know Allah, I want to get to know my heart. And obviously there's a big span between those two, and other directions as well. So again, it's about knowing their reference point.
What if, and this has been one I've been getting quite a lot, I want mystical experiences. Can you give me mystical experiences? Is that what Sufism is about? What would you say to somebody who asks you that? Do you have mystical experiences? Can I get some? Do you guys take ayahuasca? How about mescaline or peyote? Do you do meditation for 10 days without talking to anybody? Vipassana and so.
Can't we just say no?
Why, yes, of course.
But I guess it's a larger question. Are there tariqas which do that? Or, I don't know. Maybe there's pockets of our tariqa that does that, but generally I don't think anybody takes ayahuasca, or there's anyone in our tariqa that like takes acid or whatever bougie bougie kind of thing to have a mystical experience. So, the answer, at least for us, would be no, right? So I guess But I don't know. I guess the question I have is that a general rule for Sufis? Because I don't know the answer.
All right. I'm just going to refer back to our peer, Abdul Qadir al-Jilani, peace and blessings be upon him, who said, basically, as you go through the maqams, there is a period when it seems like you have the ability to check into these spiritual channels. Sometimes you can see a person's spiritual or physical or mental health. And sometimes you have an ability to see ahead or communicate or all these different things. He said that's a phase. And like all phases in all the maqams, it's a trap. Don't get stuck getting attached to anything except Allah. Mystical experiences, if they happen, they happen. And you just treat it as something that's just passing by. There's a reason why this stuff happens, but it's really not. When you're ready, the Sheikh will explain it all and make it easy for you to understand it. But when you're not ready, it becomes an attraction. And if it's an attraction, that means that you want it. And who are you is the question that we're trying to answer. So it's kind of like, well, I could get distracted and go down that way. Of course, there's all these distractions, all these are available. Anything can be a distraction or attachment. There are people, there was one person who came to a Sohbet one time who said, his first comment was, I have 10,000 books. And all I could say was, oh, good for you. That's great. If you want mystical experiences, they're there, as is everything. And as our Sheikh would often say, this world has everything, the good, the bad, everything is all here. You have choices. This is a world of choices. How you make your choices kind of defines who you are. And he described it as everything's kind of wrapped up in different packages. The bad stuff is sometimes wrapped up in all kinds of ribbons and pretty packaging, whereas the really good stuff, the true stuff, is just inside a brown paper bag. And I went, yeah, that makes sense. So you have to learn the truth from the false. And learning that is part of the journey. And sometimes you have to learn what is false to know what is true. Or as Sheikh's described it, you have to know false to know what is gold. When somebody comes to you for advice, spiritual advice, first of all, I really like what you said, Rakaya. What is it that you really want to know? Now, what we don't usually get is what are these categories of knowing, of knowledge? There's so many. What list do I choose from? How do you answer them? I can say for a lot of times people ask me, so what is Sufism? I says, it's learning how to be a better human being, how to get better at it. Is it a religion? Not really, no. It uses religion, but basically because it has the prophets in it who show us what it is like to be and speak and act as a human being. It doesn't necessarily have to be Islam. It just uses it because it's effective and it's the latest update. Now, yeah, go ahead, Rosie.
It reminded me of Sheikh Tano's translation of the word deen. Rather than religion, he would translate it as way of living.
Which brings us very close and all the way back to Taoism. And they define Tao as way.
Yeah.
It's the way. And the very first description in the Tao Te Ching is, if you can talk about it, that's not the Tao. If you can write about it, it's not the Tao. If you can see it, that's not the Tao. That's not the way. The way has no shape. It has no color. And yet it's as close as your jugular vein.
Yeah, exactly. I was also reminded of many years ago, a friend of mine, a martial arts teacher, kung fu teacher, tells me one day that this fellow had come to some of his classes and was interested in the spiritual sides of things, you know, the deeper sides of martial arts and everything. And somehow Sufism had come up in their discussion. And he said, would you be interested in talking with him? I said, sure. So what does this young man say? Well, I tried Buddhism and that just wasn't right. I'm looking for enlightenment. I want enlightenment now.
Uh-huh.
Well, my experience is just doesn't quite work that way. It's little bits and traveling and continuing, and it's a long journey. But you know, enlightenment comes in bits and pieces. And
Oh
I don't
boy.
know.
It reminds me of koans.
Never saw him again.
Yeah. Yeah. I want it right now. Yeah. Yeah. The California way. Okay, very quick Zen koan. Before enlightenment, chop wood, carry water. After enlightenment, chop wood, carry water. Yeah. In other words, whatever you're doing right now, this is it. Everything happens now. If you're looking for something, make that present. Make that happen. Make it now. Do it now. So in considering how to advise someone else who's asking about this path, it helps to know what you have experienced and how you understand it. Not what other people have, but this is relating between you and the other person, and why we learn about, one of the reasons why we learn about reference points and why we try to understand other people by basically being curious, scientifically. Basically, I think of it as a scientific curiosity so that you can learn their vocabulary and their point of view. The difference between a lawyer and a mechanic, for example. How they see the world is very different, and different vocabulary, different system of how things operate. And if you want to just tell a mechanic, you know, who's interested in Sufism, or even, you know, just a problem they're trying to solve, you come at it from their point of view, you know, and whether it's an electric car or a gasoline, petrol type vehicle, you still have to, or pedal. It's got pedals, you know, there's still all these different ways of looking at something, as it would be for a lawyer to look at things through right and wrong. What is justice? What is the precedent? Who's the judge? So does that raise any other questions for you? I think learning to articulate what you have experienced is very important. And that's why keeping a journal, diary, or any kind of thing that you can put words down so that you can see them. And as you write them, something special happens. You're connecting your outer world with your inner wiring. Your brain neuron stuff is coming out, and you're able to see it and have some kind of objectivity. And different kind of understanding, and it comes from the deep inside to the outside. And then as you write too, sometimes things go from the outside to the inside. Tempted to say magical, but it's a process that we still don't understand how it works, but it works. So finding ways to talk about these things is important for you, to be able to find words. English isn't that great for this kind of stuff, so you're going to have to make stuff up. I sometimes come up with strange metaphors and analogies that seem to work at the moment. And of course, depending on the person who's talking to and with their point of view. So, but first you have to know also your point of view. How do you see things? So putting them down as words and sentences, paragraphs, and finding ways to get the inside to the outside is, I think, really helpful. One way or another, whatever works for you. But it's an important part of growing on this path. Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. Alhamdulillah Rabbil Alameen, Rahman Rahim, Maliki Yawmiddin, Iyyaka na'budu wa iyyaka nasta'in, Ihdina sirata mustaqim, Siratal ladzina an'amta alayhim, Ghayril maghdubi alayhim, wala dhalin. Amen. Ooh. Salaam Alaykum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
Ooh. Thank you, Sheikh. Thank you, everyone.
Shukran.
Thank you. Thanks for joining
Shukran,
us.
guys.
Bye.
Bye-bye. Salaam Alaykum, murids, seekers, curious, and interested listeners. We appreciate you and are happy to share our Sufi message. Your donation will help support our Sufi Center in Sydney, where we do zikr, sohbet, spiritual counseling, and healing services. We believe the message should be free, but it costs equipment, rental, services, software, and hardware to get this to you. So thank you for choosing our podcast among all the millions available. If you go to our website, AnsariSufiOrder.org, you will be able to donate through PayPal whatever you think this information is worth to you. Blessings and love, the Australian Ansari Sufi Order.